And joining us now from Sydney is Bonita Mersiades. She's a former executive with the Football Federation Australia and a whistleblower against FIFA. And with us in our Washington, D.C. studio is Jason Davis. He's host of Soccer Morning at Sirius XM Radio, subscriber-based satellite internet radio service. Jason, let's start with you. To use the football parlance, did FIFA get a red card? Have they got a yellow card, or is it play on as usual?
I think it's a yellow card. I think it is a warning sign for FIFA that somebody is watching them now. They have been long able to go about their business without any real oversight. It's a different question for Sepp Blatter, of course, and he is now, again, president of FIFA.
But he's just won vindication considering the corruption charges that we've seen so close to the election, and yet he got... Okay, it nearly went to a second round. But...
It nearly did. It did not, because ultimately Prince Ali decided to step out of the race, knowing he wasn't going to get the votes. But Blatter's support around the world, I mean, I think it's easy for us in the West to forget that his base of support is in a lot of developing countries, countries where football needs the sort of support that Blatter has been willing to give them, and respect as well. I mean, he has paid attention when many people in Europe and the Americas have not.
Bonita, I want to bring you in from Sydney. Thanks for joining us there. What's your reaction to the re-election of Sepp Blatter? You have testified against the organisation he now heads for a fifth time.
Sorry, I'm losing audio a little bit, so I'm not quite sure the last bit of that question. But in terms of my reaction, it's not surprising at all. It's entirely expected, but of course it's disappointing.
Why?
Oh, I'm sorry, I've lost audio altogether.
Okay, well, just let's pick it up with you, and maybe Bonita will come back to us. Sure. Australia, after all, is a long, long way away from Washington, D.C. You know, you said we shouldn't be surprised. Sepp Blatter has a long tradition of growing the game outside of its traditional areas, Europe and into Africa, into Asia. Mm-hmm. That helped him.
Absolutely. I mean, there are plenty of people in Africa who tell you there is no South Africa World Cup without Sepp Blatter. That engenders him a lot of support. In fact, one of the major reasons he was reelected today was because he held that entire block of African nations voting for him. And the same thing goes for Asia. I mean, the Qatari World Cup may not be his particular project. He did say he voted for the USA in that round of in that round of bidding, but it is the spirit of Sepp Blatter to push the game of football to various corners it has not been to yet that allows him to get that support. Absolutely.
Let's hear from the man now after his victory. He says he's going to clean up.
This gives me now the time, because I was identified to be responsible for what has happened. I take the responsibility, and we have to build up now a better image of FIFA. And I know how to do it. I cannot disclose it now, but we will do it as from tomorrow morning. We have a meeting of the executive committee, and they will listen to me. They will receive some information or some messages. Some of them will be surprised.
Interesting, I mean, obviously really looking at the way forward, not bothered by this at all. There is a question I want to ask you about the United States. Mm-hmm. The US football, you know, not a big invested player. Why did they bring this case? And there's been question marks internationally about the timing of this to try and get Sepp Blatter out.
Sure. I think the timing was more about opportunity for the Department of Justice and the FBI. They had several key figures involved in the case in one location in a country with an extradition agreement with the United States. I think that was really the timing.
Good point.
But in terms of the U.S. bringing this case, I don't know that I see a lot of sour grapes when it comes to the lost World Cup bid.
You don't think it's sore losers because the UK have been doing this?
Yeah, you know, I just think that, you know, we have a police apparatus that is operating independently of any sort of cultural notions of football being a big... It's obviously, football is growing in the United States, but it's not nearly there enough to think that someone in the DOJ was upset about it.
We've got Bonita Mersiades back with us from Sydney. Thanks for your patience. Glad we can hear you again. You have talked about FIFA potential corruption. Have you seen it as endemic? You were part of the Australia losing bid.
Yeah, look, it is endemic, and that is the problem with FIFA. It's as Loretta Lynch said the other day, this has been going on for decades, and it's through all parts of the organisation. The World Cup bids, in a sense, they were just at the end that they were relatively recent, but it's not the only evidence of corruption or the only suggestion of corruption within the organisation. And it is this long-term systemised way of doing business within FIFA that needs to be addressed.
What in particular?
Oh, where do you start? I mean, the way they sort of work is you know, in Australia we'd call it good old-fashioned pork barrel politics.
It's the same here in the United States.
Blatter in particular draws his base from small countries that are not very resource-rich, and they do some wonderful works for development. They put football fields where there've never been football fields. Kids are able to play where they were not able to play. But there's no real probity or accountability around some of that funding. And there's, you know, favours sought, there are favours given, and that provides him with his voting base. That's worked very well for him for 17 years as president, and before that he was 17 years as CEO, and before that he was the first development officer in FIFA. So he actually built this whole system into being an art form.
Can I ask you then, what's the way forward? He's just been re-elected for a 5th term, but the Americans have said, you know, this is the beginning of an investigation. There may be more corruption allegations. What would you like to see happen to FIFA? Different head, obviously, but...
Well, yeah, I was just having trouble with the audio again, sorry, but I mean, the whole legal process has to go through its own time frame and its own process. But I'm involved with a group of people around the world under the banner of New FIFA Now, and what we're advocating is that there be systemic reform of FIFA, that we have a FIFA Reform Commission, much like there was with the Olympics in 1999, and an eminent person be brought in to completely overhaul FIFA statutes, their constitution, their committee structure, their committee membership, how the whole voting takes place, and then basically start again, because I don't think, you only have to look at what Blatter said in 2011 when he was elected, and I'll quote, he said, "I'm going to put FIFA's ship on the right course in clear, transparent waters." Well, that hasn't worked too well in the past 4 years. It hasn't worked too well in the past 17 years or 34 years. So we do need complete change for people to have confidence in this organisation.
Jason, Bonita has suggested someone like Mitt Romney, who rescued the Olympics here in Salt Lake City, or Kofi Annan, to head FIFA. But when you have powerful figures in the world like Vladimir Putin coming out and defending Sepp Blatter, you do realise this is not going to be an easy job, and there is still a lot of respect in the developing world for what Sepp Blatter has done to the game in Africa, to the game in Asia, and growing it out of its sort of Western dominance, which is important, right?
Absolutely, and you know, as to what Bonita suggests, I mean, that is the way forward. It's just I don't know how we begin to sort of crack the facade that FIFA has up in order to get to that point, and she may have some suggestions, but when it comes to Sepp Blatter, he knows, he made the same ship analogy today in his victory speech that he made 4 years ago in 2011, and obviously he has not corrected the course. The ship is still quite adrift, so we don't have any expectations that he's going to do it himself.
Bonita in Sydney, I hope you can hear me, but they always say follow the money. And the sponsors are starting to get nervous, it seems. We've had Visa say they want a crackdown. They have big ones like Adidas and Coca-Cola who live on a wholesome image of their brands. Is that the way that Sepp Blatter may get down, is through the money?
Look, I think it is. Sponsors are key. The only difference is, though, between the Olympics in 1999, where the US Congress played a very important role in putting pressure on the American sponsors, is that with FIFA, there are American sponsors and non-American sponsors, and they see these things a little differently. For instance, Gazprom is one of the sponsors of FIFA. But you do have some major American companies who are sponsoring FIFA, and there is a gap between their stated values related to business integrity and a commitment to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, and an organisation that they fund. And I think, you know, this is why we say that we have to. It's a almost, you know, it's a posse coming towards them. It has to be governments working together, and I use that term loosely in terms of the government class, if I can put it that way. Sponsors and fans putting pressure on together to make this change happen.
Jason, I want to talk to you about the money, because FIFA earned about $1.4 billion in the last World Cup cycle. The English Premiership League has about $25 billion in revenue. There are fixing allegations around Europe. Europol was brought in. Is this just football?
It seems to be. I mean, the more, the easier it is to see the game around the world, and clearly the Premier League is popular all over the place. The La Liga, the Spanish, have shifted times so that the games can be better viewed in China. There is clearly a direction that is, we're going to consolidate as much money as we possibly can, and it's having a serious impact on how people think about how the game should be governed. Instead of what's best for football, it is what's best for our business.
I want to just get down into this case because it's going to unfold in the next few months. Bonita Mersiades, how serious do you think the charges are? How much do you think they will hold up going forward? And can you see more allegations coming out as the months and weeks go in, potentially threatening Sepp Blatter?
I don't think the FBI and the IRS and the US Attorney for the Eastern District of New York would have moved in, or the Swiss government, in fact, without having some confidence of what they're dealing with. So I would expect that the charges are very serious, that they know what they're doing. And when Loretta Lynch, who was so impressive the other day when she talked about these issues, when she says there is more to come, I think we can expect there's more to come.
And the bids to Moscow and Qatar in 2018 and 2022, do you think they will be investigated fully? And is there a risk or a threat that these games, these cup could be re-awarded or the bidding process opened up? That would be a real shock.
Look, it would be a shock because certainly FIFA under Sepp Blatter and with the people who are currently in power have said that those decisions will not be revisited. But if there is other work happening, for instance, by the Swiss government, by the US authorities in relation to these issues, and they find evidence, and you know there is a whistleblower in Washington also who has talked about some of these issues, if they find evidence to support that, then it has to be revisited because people do not, and mothers, fathers do not want their kids involved in a sport where sport is so important to societal values that is built on a foundation which has got no integrity.
Say it ain't so. Jason, what have fans been saying on your radio show? There must have been a lot of buzz over this.
Yeah, it's a little bit mixed. You know, a lot of people obviously calling for Sepp Blatter to be ousted. You know, despite the fact that I was consistently telling them that's probably not going to happen, much to their chagrin. You know, everybody's sickened by it, but I think the conclusion is that we're fans, and ultimately we're always going to come back to the game. It is what, you know, it is a passion of ours and of millions and billions of people around the world, and that's what buys FIFA the ability to slide by so often. Is it is so popular, it is so important to people that we don't turn away.
Bonita Mersiades, I want to end this segment with you. A bit of a counter-narrative here. You know, we've seen a very successful World Cup in South Africa. We've seen a really good one in Brazil. It's opening up the world game like never before. Country teams are being in the stages that are beyond merit, but perhaps regionally should be there. Under Sepp Blatter, a lot of people feel the game has widened and deepened. What is your opinion?
I think that's absolutely right. There's a lot under his leadership, which has been fantastic. No one can deny that the World Cup is probably the most successful sporting event in the world. And as Jason was just saying, fans love it. What's important though is to divorce our love for the game away from the way it's managed. And a game that is so huge, a game that is so successful, needs to be built on the basis of democracy, transparency and accountability. It needs the input of key stakeholders such as players and fans, which it doesn't really have in any systemic way. And it needs to be something in which we have some confidence and trust and can keep going forward. I think it is fantastic that football is truly a global language, and it has been able to be shown that is the case. So let's build on it and get better and do it in the right way.
It looks like this battle between FIFA and its critics is going to go into extra time. Bonita Mersiades, thank you so much from Sydney. Jason Davis here in the studio in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Next, we'll have more on the investigation into the bids for the next World Cup tournaments with a Russian political analyst. Stay with us on The Heat.